Hello and welcome to the Actual Tech Media EcoCast. My name is Jess and I am excited to be here with you all today. But before we jump into our content, I have some basic information that I want to cover with you. All right, let's kick off our day here today by taking a quick tour of your audience console. And we're going to start with the questions window. So if you haven't already said hi, there is a whole audience of cool humans out there, so reach out and give a wave to the other members of the Actual Tech Media community. Now, keep in mind that if you do have any technical issues today, a browser refresh is going to fix just about anything. But if those tech gremlins are clinging on today, no problem. Just throw a comment in the question section and our crew will be there to help. We also want this to be an informative webinar for you, so throughout today's EcoCast, we hope you'll get engaged and ask all your burning questions. Not only will we have team members responding to you over a live chat, we will also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of our presentations. Now, if we don't get to your question during the live webinar today, don't worry, because the awesome experts that we have here with us will be following up after we wrap. All right, next up, there's going to be lots of cool aha moments on the EcoCast today. And if you want to share those with your community, we've made it nice and easy for you. You can use the Twitter button right there in your audience console, and the hashtag for today's EcoCast will be automatically added to your post. All right, our last stop on this guided tour, be sure to check out the handouts tab for some awesome resources and takeaways from our speakers here today. We have an info pack collection, solution briefs, white papers, data sheets, free trials, ebooks, upcoming webinars, and more. So many great resources, so be sure to go explore. Now, if that wasn't enough fun, we also have some exciting prizes that we'll be giving away throughout today's EcoCast. I'm going to tell you a bit more about those later on, but a few quick reminders for you all. First, you do need to be here live in attendance at the EcoCast in order to qualify to win a prize, and we will follow up with all of you after we wrap. Now, all winners must submit an IRS Form W-9 to Actual Tech Media, and all winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. Now, if you don't know what those full T's and C's are, that's fine. We've got the full thing for you. Just head on over to that handouts tab, click in, scroll down to the bottom, and you'll find them waiting for you there. Now, the absolute most important thing to remember is that we love getting all your insightful questions during these live webinars. In fact, we love it so much that we actually have a special additional prize for all you inquisitive folks out there. So in today's EcoCast, we will be giving away a prize for the best question asked in each of our live sessions. Now, the expert speakers and teams will review all questions asked after we wrap the webinar, which means that even if your question does not get read out in a live session, there is still a chance to win. If you are a lucky winner here today and you would like to donate the value of your prize, we have several wonderful organizations that we partner with. So let us know when we follow up about your big win, and we'll get that rolling for you. Again, we are so happy to have you all here with us live at the EcoCast today, and we want to keep that good feeling going, so let's connect on social media. Reach out and connect with Actual Tech Media on Twitter and on LinkedIn. We have lots of great content, and we always want to hear from you. Now, if you're looking for more awesome content and resources right after we wrap the EcoCast today, be sure to subscribe to the Actual Tech Media channel on YouTube. Another fun way to win a prize and, hey, grow this awesome community is to refer an industry friend or a coworker to the Actual Tech Media webinar series. Now, you'll find a link to do that right in your handouts tab, and you will also be automatically redirected at the end of the webinar. And both you and your coworker or friend could win a prize, and we hold those drawings every month. So be sure to refer a friend because, it could quite literally be a win-win situation. Next, we have a cool opportunity for all the decision makers out there to get connected with new and emerging tech and innovative vendors. Here's how it works. All you need to do is click on the link in your handouts tab, fill out a quick application, and the Actual Tech crew will then match you with some vendors that we think you should probably be chatting with based on your needs. There will also be fun opportunities that you get to choose to join in, like surveys, test runs, new solutions, extended demos, and so on. You'll get some chances to win extra prizes, you'll chat with great people, and you'll learn about the hottest new trends in tech. So be sure to apply, or hey, send that link to a decision maker on your team. Now, I want to take a quick minute here to remind you all about one of my favorite resources, and that is ransomware.org. You can find out everything you need to know about ransomware, how to prepare, prevent, and recover. This site is jam-packed with information, helpful tips, checklists, strategic approaches, case studies, everything you need in one place. So wherever you are in your ransomware preparedness journey, there is something for you at ransomware.org. Go check it out and start exploring. All right, I have one more exciting resource I have to tell you about today, and that is the Gorilla Guide Book Club. It's going to give you access to free enterprise IT books authored by top industry experts, so you can stay up to date on trending enterprise technology. And yes, these books will work on your Kindle, your mobile device, and as I said, they are completely free. You can download these awesome resources at gorilla.guide, and there's a link for you in that handouts tab as well. All right, well, we have covered a lot of important things already, and I don't know about you all, but I am excited to dive in. So let's get going.
Thank you, Jess. I appreciate all of that. Hello, and welcome to the Actual Tech Media's Ransomware.org EcoCast. Today's topic is all about exploring the tools and solutions that comprise a comprehensive ransomware strategy. Now, today's event includes some of the leading companies in the industry. You'll be hearing from experts at Nasuni, Palo Alto, Rapid7, and Graphis. I'm Keith Ward, a moderator with Actual Tech Media, and along with our other moderators, Jess and Scott Becker, I want to start by saying a big thank you for joining us today. I'm really excited about this event since I used to edit ransomware.org that Jess mentioned previously. So obviously, ransomware is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. I can't wait to get going on this today. And as always, it's not just the awesome content we're giving away today. We have great prizes that includes today's booty, which is three $300 Amazon gift cards, which we'll be giving away throughout the presentations. All right, and with that out of the way, it's time to set the table for today's event. I recently had a chat with ransomware expert Larry Seltzer about the topic that we're going to be covering today. And he had some fascinating insights to share. So with that, let's get going. Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. I'm Keith Ward, a moderator with Actual Tech Media, and joining me right now is Larry Seltzer. Larry's a veteran journalist and security expert with a CISSP certification. He's also a developer, so he understands security issues from both the dev and admin sides. And we're delighted to have him with us today. Larry, welcome.
Okay, it's great to be here.
Absolutely, great to have you. Today we're talking about the tools and solutions that comprise a comprehensive ransomware strategy. So first, let's unpack that phrase, comprehensive ransomware strategy, to start with. What does that phrase look like in reality?
90% of 90-something% of a comprehensive ransomware strategy looks like a more general comprehensive enterprise security strategy. So there's a lot to it. You've got risk assessment, data backup, patch management, endpoint protection. I could go on for a long time listing the things that are relevant to ransomware as well as other things. So in other words, the strategy for preventing and recovering from ransomware consists of doing the things you need to do to prevent other kinds of attacks. So remember that all those parts of the strategy lose credibility if you don't re-examine and reassess them on a steady basis. Someone needs to be responsible for keeping risk assessment, incident response, and such things current. In the same way, you need employee training, and you need to keep it up to date. It's common to farm this out, but I would try to incorporate something of the specific threats that your security people have seen to let everybody know that this is all for real. And speaking of outsourcing, this is big. You should have a relationship with a security firm with expertise in prevention of ransomware and other threats and incident recovery. These companies can perform regular tests and audits of your systems. Many of them are owned by large tech firms like Mandiant, who's owned by Google Cloud. So you may have a relationship with a larger company already. You really don't want to wait for an incident to bring in a consultant who knows nothing about you. Another thing these consultants can do is interface with law enforcement if that becomes necessary. I mentioned data backup, right? But that alone doesn't do anything for you. You need your backups to be protected against an attacker who gains sufficient privileges in your network that they can wipe the backups, which they would want to do. You need a credible recovery strategy. This is something a lot of people just don't test enough. In an emergency, you need access to the backups and the personnel in place to restore them quickly. So that's hard to do. And an even better approach is to consider something like there's a vendor called Zerto, Zerto, that has this as a service that provides automatic continuous backup and very fast recovery. So there's not much to the strategy that would be peculiar to ransomware, except having some competence at cryptocurrency and the ability to get money into it for a ransom payment if it comes to that. I think if you're good at the other things, it should be almost never necessary to go there. But there are sometimes very high level attacks that use 0-day vulnerabilities. It's possible that it might come to that. Your consultant will have an opinion and a strategy for that.
Gotcha. All right. Now you mentioned a lot in there. And I want to focus in a little bit on categories of tools. So you talked about, things like backup, things like monitoring, all of these different things that are part of protecting your organization from ransomware. But would you say, Larry, that there are any particular categories that stand out for being more important when it comes to being protected from this scourge of ransomware right now? Are there categories that you need to be spending more time and more effort examining or using?
It's a real depends on how you look at it question. There's a truism in this business is that if you prevent an attack, then you don't have to recover from it. So in that sense, prevention is the most crucial, and it's always true, even if it's not always helpful. That kind of prevention comes from a lot of tools, including your firewall, your IDS, IPS, email security, endpoint security like antivirus, and just keeping all your software patched against known vulnerabilities. If the attack does manage to get a toehold, then the most crucial tools are those that prevent it from spreading within your network or from gaining sufficient privileges to do damage. This means things like microsegmenting the network and encrypting all data on the wire and at rest. Almost everything plays a role. There's a new a new edgier form of tool that shows some value. There's a class called user behaved analytics, or UBA. These tools have AI and machine learning. They use them to establish a baseline of normal activities specific to each user and group, and maybe even to devices. And they can identify potentially harmful behavior that deviates from the norm. And so that's another layer of protection against an attack. There's another important part of this, which is PAM, or Privileged Access Management. PAM is designed specifically to protect, to manage privileged accounts, these are generally administrator accounts with high privileges, access to critical systems, and therefore the kind that a ransomware attacker would really want to get hold of. So a good PAM is a good tool for preventing an attacker from gaining any important privileges.
Gotcha. That's all. So basically what I hear you saying, Larry, is everything is important and nothing can really be overlooked because it's a holistic type of solution.
Mm-hmm.
So given that, what kind of ransomware blind spots do you find that companies commonly have? What do they overlook that they shouldn't? What are the important things that they're forgetting, for example, that you see time and again, things that we need to be aware of?
Well, anecdotally, it seems as if phishing attacks are still the most common foot in the door for attackers. It's amazing because it's just so old and everyone knows it's coming and everybody tries to prevent it. But it's preying on humans and human vulnerabilities, and it's hard to find products to bulk them up.
Right. And in a
Um,
sense, Larry, everything that was old is new again.
yep,
Phishing
yep.
attacks are ramping up again with AI, with Chat GPT. So they have a kind of a new impact, maybe that was diminished when people were starting to recognize the signs of a classic
Mhm.
phishing attack. Well, with ChatGPT, those attacks are much better now. So we could be seeing them all over again, couldn't we?
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, AI should also make protection against those attacks better, but it's not. I think that's probably going to take a while longer because
Yeah,
people want to be permissive in letting emails get in.
right.
Here's one that definitely flies under a lot of people's radar. It's a bit techy, but it's SSH servers. In a Linux network, which means almost everybody now, it's common for admins to set up servers using SSH, which is a secure shell. It's a command line interface that has some security behind it, but often not near enough. This is much more likely to be used for lateral movement within a network than for initial penetration of it. The classic and easiest way to set up an SSH is with a password for access to it. So the admin either needs to be, have different passwords for everything or share a password, which of course is not good. The best way to do SSH is with digital certificates that you manage like other certificates, because at least the protection is much stronger and they will expire at some point. In the old school way with passwords, it's easy for an SSH server, especially one on a non-standard port, to be forgotten. And then if an attacker finds it, you're in big trouble. I've heard stories of attackers finding Excel sheets with IP addresses and passwords of an admin's SSH service. When that happens, your company's pants are completely down. So
That's a little scary.
yeah. So the system to manage SSH responsibly is something that's not widespread enough.
Absolutely. Okay, that's about all the time we've got for today. Larry Seltzer, thank you so much for giving us your wisdom and insights around a topic that is so crucial, tools and solutions that comprise a comprehensive ransomware strategy. The focus is on comprehensive defense in depth. You've got to have more than one way to protect yourself because the bad guys have multiple ways to get you. So again, Larry, thanks so much for joining us today.
Oh, you're welcome. It's been my pleasure.
All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed that discussion. Larry has a wealth of knowledge and is really involved in this field. And so I think that was really a useful discussion, a useful chat to have. Now, that brings us to a poll question, the first one of the day. We want to know what your time frame is for adding new or updating existing IT solutions at your company. Like, are you just starting? Are you in the planning stages? Are you in the middle of an upgrade or new deployment somewhere else in your journey? This is the kind of stuff we really are interested in. It's great feedback. It's really useful. And what I'm seeing so far in terms of the poll is a lot of you are kind of not sure where you are. Maybe that means that's, I guess, one reason you're here today is you want to find out what's available, what's out there for ransomware and other types of protection. That's the leader. And many of you are doing the right thing, and just being here means you're doing the right thing as well. So with that, we're going to leave those results up for just a couple more seconds here, and we're going to get rolling with our sessions. Our leadoff hitter today for this is Ben Clark. Ben Clark is with Nasuni. He is a senior product marketing manager. Ben, are you there?
I'm here.
All
Thank you for having
right.
me.
Great to have you with us here today. I will turn it over to you. You are on deck, so step up to the plate.
All right. Thank you very much. And great video to kick it off. I think we're touching on a lot of that here. But overall, what I wanted to talk about today is a little bit about Nasuni to know where we stand and who we are and how we go about protecting and recovering our customers from ransomware protection or from ransomware. So first off, start with a little bit of background on what Nasuni is. And so Nasuni is a file data platform that provides all the capabilities of your primary file shares, your backup and recovery, your ransomware protection, disaster recovery, and multi-site file synchronization all in one solution. And we can do this based on our cloud native architecture. And so with Nasuni, all the data is fully in cloud object storage. And so that will be like Amazon S3, Azure Blob, or GCP object storage. And we also support on-prem object storage. And why that's important is if you're familiar with object storage, it's different than block storage and offers greater durability and can be much more scalable at a lower cost. And so with Nasuni, we make object storage great for storing file data. So you can have volumes and files of any size with the metadata to describe those files, as well as unlimited immutable versions of that data. And so we use object storage for all of the data. So the gold copy of your file data is consolidated in object storage. And just the other thing I wanted to touch on is those edge points at the bottom of the slide there. And so these edge instances are access points to this gold copy in the cloud. And they're lightweight VMs that cache copies of active data from the object storage, either on-prem or in cloud regions. So no matter how much data or files you have, you're not really going to experience any latency. And when we get to the discussion of ransomware, so these edge instances are the front line of your data protection strategy. And they send unlimited snapshots to the cloud at very tight intervals where they then become immutable objects and are impervious to ransomware. And so we have customers with petabytes and petabytes of data. They got a lot stored on Nasuni. And so obviously ransomware is becoming more prevalent and is a big issue and focus for our customers. And so on the next slide, a couple stats in a recent study that we worked with a vendor for on ransomware, just to dive into how prevalent it is once again. And this first one right here really resonates with that video we just watched. But 90% of attacks are caused by human error, which seems like a lot. That was super surprising to me when I first saw it. But no matter how many tools or solutions or backup solutions you have, 90% are still going to be caused by human error. So a lot of the tools that Keith and Larry just talked about are extremely important. I know on the last actual tech cast that I was a part of, we talked about zero trust. That's where this comes in. Two-factor authentication, authorizing users, making sure no one has access to things that they shouldn't have access for. And that all comes together in this defense in-depth framework that I'm sure we all heard. Just layers and layers of tools and defenses for a multi-layered approach in protecting your organization. And it starts with the human there with that zero trust architecture. Even down further to physical defense with why you have name badges and physically can't go places that you shouldn't be. But then, especially what we're going to focus on here, it happens. A lot of times it's caused by humans. So then what are the tools needed to get back to business as quickly as possible? And so continuing on here, so 80% of organizations have been attacked in the last 12 months. It's very prevalent. Those who paid, the majority were hit again. So paying a ransom does not work. The impact of these attacks are much larger than the ransom itself. The ransom is minuscule when it compares to downtime, especially for large organizations. It could be thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars an hour. This is not counting disruption to projects and along the supply chain, as well as reputational damage. The impact is huge if you don't get back to business and know how to handle a ransomware attack when it happens. 75% or less of the data was recovered from those those folks that did pay the ransom. So even if you do, you're not going to get all your data back. And 54% were down at least 6 hours. And that ranges all the way up to multiple days or more. So prevention is essential, but recovery of an attack is critical. And so with mitigation and recovery are important. Storage technologies that can mitigate the impact and accelerate recovery should be a consideration for any organization, because accelerating recovery and getting back to business is really the most important thing. And so let's look at this chart right here that my boss called the most ugly chart she's ever seen, but it packs a lot of aspects into one crazy graph. So time is money. The more the time elapses when there's a ransomware attack, the more files and users are going to be affected, the larger that blast radius is going to spread. I think Lockbit is a pretty common ransomware variant and one of the fastest, and I think it can affect 100,000 files in 5 minutes was how fast it. So, I mean, think about that, minutes. If it happens in the middle of the night and it takes hours to notice, it's going to be affecting millions of files. So as time increases, the blast radius is going to get larger. That super costly downtime is going to be increasing from minutes to hours to days. And then, the cost is steadily rising. And once it spreads too far, you're going to be shutting down locations, potentially production lines, thousands of devices and users, to bringing productivity to a halt, confidential files. So you can see the longer you let this spread and the longer it takes to mitigate and get back to business, it's going to get more and more costly. And so with Nasuni, it's very important for our customers, and especially for that, because 80% of a company's data is in file shares. So we have a niche, we focus on files, but that's a large surface that can be attacked for an organization. And the most common IT systems impacted by successful ransomware attacks are storage systems and cloud-based data. So when we're looking at that defense in depth approach, we have a very focused expertise on files to add a strong layer of protection there. But then if you see on the other side, one of the big steps we're taking this year is to take the info we're gathering from our ransomware solution and our detection capabilities, our alerts, our notifications, and the info collected there, and integrating with some of these larger tools like Varonis and Microsoft Sentinel that are very common tools. And we're looking at more that are more enterprise-wide SIEM tools that can use our data and spread it and get visibility and coordination and be able to do more things across the whole organization. So we got to focus on files, but having impact across the whole organization. We touched on this, but the cost of preventing ransomware attack from being successful is much lower than the combined cost of paying it. And then finally, like the Nasuni platform, this solution makes it easy to implement across hundreds of locations and petabytes of data, and the ability to recover millions of files in seconds to minimize data and productivity loss across the enterprise. And so let's key into that last point I just made there. Things that take longer than restoring 1 million files with Nasuni cloud file storage, such as eating an apple. And so why is that? So this has always been around for us. It's always been loved by our customers for years. It's based on how the platform, the Nasuni platform is, and its innate capability. We talked about the snapshots. They're unlimited, they're incorruptible, they can be retained for as long as you need them, and they're taken every few minutes. We have customers some of our larger customers have over 1 billion snapshots ranging years and years old, and they could restore till day one if they want to, or 5 minutes ago. And so, I mean, if you are affected with ransomware with Nasuni, you already have multiple snapshots of intervals a few minutes apart. And what you're doing is simply dialing back to that very point in time before the attack occurred. So like I said, you could dial back a year, you could dial back 5 minutes, and you're not really having to move or restore any data. And that's why it's so fast. And so most users will never know that an attack even happened. And so that's awesome that we have this ability. But, as ransomware became more prevalent, our users wanted something focused more around the issue of ransomware. This is great. You can restore 1 million files in a minute. You can restore super fast, but that's not really going to do much if you don't know that you're even getting attacked. It's not going to do much if you don't know where you're getting attacked, what files are affected, what user is affected, or the source of the attack. And it's not going to be helpful if you don't know when it started, so when you're even recovering too. And so that's the basis of what we created when we created this new ransomware solution last year. And so basing it off the NIST framework as an industry standard of recovering from ransomware, we have the protect and the recover. We talked about this. This is part of the Nasuni platform and our architecture, that those unlimited immutable snapshots and that really fast recovery ability. And so with our solution that we now have, it's really filling in all the gaps and bringing in those other tools that you really need to get back to business faster and make the process of getting attacked by ransomware, mitigating it, and getting back to business as quickly as possible. And so these other tools are in the form of detecting and responding. And so with Nasuni, we talked about those edge instances earlier. We have really fast detection by detecting at the edge as opposed to analyzing backups. And from here, we're detecting this attack. We're identifying the source of the threat. We have mitigation policies. So once an attack is detected, if it continues to encrypt files, generally probably for just another minute, that client is going to be cut off from the rest of the system automatically. So we talked about how fast some of these variants can encrypt files. So if it happens in the middle of the night and it's encrypting 100,000 files every 5 minutes, if we just had our rapid recovery, that's not going to be helpful. You're going to wake up in the morning to some alerts and millions of files encrypted. But now our system responds automatically within minutes to cut it off from the rest of the system. And then finally, reporting of all the key details and streamlining recovery. So as soon as an incident has been created and detected in the system, a incident report is automatically generated almost instantaneously in the form of PDF that contains all the details you need to understand what happened and what to do from there. So an explanation of the attack, what files were affected, including a list of them, the volume affected, how many files, how many clients, the ransomware variant that was the culprit here. And then finally, and probably most importantly, a timeline of the attack. So when it started, when the client was blocked, and all the way at the beginning of the client, the last clean snapshot already identified to let you know where you're recovering to. And so then continuing on from there, the newest feature that was just introduced this quarter, you can see under Respond, is called Targeted Restore. And so now at the click of a button, you go to the recovery process, and all these details I mentioned in that report are already queued up into the recovery process. So it knows exactly what files were affected and when to recover to. And then it's going to, with just a couple clicks, you're going to move towards that rapid recovery and get back to business in a minute. And it's also very precise. It's not even restoring the entire folder where those files were contained in. It's picking and choosing those exact files. So if it's 25 files were affected, those 25 will be restored. And so in the grand scheme of things, what we've really been keying on and the value that we're trying to bring to our customers with this solution all comes down to the mean time to recovery. Human error, it's phishing Keith, like you mentioned, is very old, but it's getting smarter and smarter. And I'm personally impressed by a lot of these attempts that I'm getting from text messages, emails, and it's pretty crazy how easy it is to click and how easy it is for, a hacker to get into your system. And so assuming that's going to happen, the importance really lies with getting back to business as quickly as possible, detecting it, stopping it, and recovering fast. And I touched on a lot of these points in the last slide, but when you look at those aspects that we added to really get to our rapid ransomware recovery as fast as possible, in the terms of detection at the edge, stopping the blast radius almost instantly, and kind of eliminating the administrative, investigative work to even understand the attack and know what to do and how to recover. It's really taking a attack from detection to recovery down to just minutes, as opposed to, analyzing backups, manually cutting off the attack and manually investigating all the details of this attack to know how to proceed. That's what we've really been focusing on to get our customers back to business as quickly as possible. And just to highlight, this has been really well received. This solution's only been available for about a year and a half now. And I wanted to show that focusing on that value of speed and tools that can get you back to business faster has been very well received, not only in the industry, but with our customers. And even in the last couple quarters, getting customers to Nasuni as new Nasuni customers to use us as their file data storage based on being attacked by ransomware and seeing the value of having a comprehensive ransomware solution built into the system that they'll be using and used to as users for storage already, that can do it all from detection to recovery with a drastically reduced time to get back to business. All right, and so ending on this slide here, on the next slide, I do have a 4-minute kind of walkthrough demo that shows this in action and, from start to finish. And I think it'll do a lot better job of explaining than I can. And then we'll get to some questions and answers. So let me hop over to the next slide and we'll play a short video. Okay, I think that's a placeholder slide. Here we go.
When a ransomware attack happens, Nasuni knows that every second matters. That's why we are introducing Nasuni's Ransomware Protection Add-on Service. Nasuni's file data platform automatically protects your enterprise file data with continuous file versioning, so file changes are kept safe and secure forever. And the platform's rapid ransomware recovery can recover millions of files across any number of locations in just seconds. Our new Ransomware Protection Add-on Service dramatically shortens the overall timeline of the attack by adding detection and response capabilities. The service starts by detecting live ransomware attacks as they happen in line at the edge, and then automatically responds with mitigation policies to stop the attack and help you recover fast. And with Nasuni's targeted restore process, administrative work is minimized with a streamlined, precise recovery process that just takes a few clicks. Let's see it in action. Activating ransomware detection is as easy as flipping a switch. To avoid false positives, I can adjust the incident creation threshold to only send an alert when the threshold is passed. In this case, 50 violations within 5 minutes. The next step is enabling ransomware mitigation. The ransomware mitigation policies are designed to block a client that's involved in an attack. This reduces the impact the attacker can have on the file system and limits the number of files that can be encrypted as part of the attack. The mitigation policy also lets you set a threshold for the number of violations that will be tolerated before shutting down the client source of the attack. I'll click the Save button, and the management console will set this policy on all of the edge appliances connected to this volume. Now let's see how it works in an attack. Here we see 2 simulated ransomware attacks running simultaneously. On the left, there is no protection add-on service. On the right, we've enabled the service. What we see on the right is that the attack gets stopped at 97 files, and the attack is no longer able to proceed with its encryption. This means that the script can't damage the files any further. Compare this to the script running on the left, where there is no ransomware protection service. In just a matter of seconds, the attack has locked down hundreds of files and keeps going. An unmitigated attack can potentially impact tens of thousands or even millions of files in a very short period of time. Now let's take a look at Nasuni's Incident Management section, where we have a view of all of the incidents that have been detected by the system. A shield icon indicates that the system has proactively responded to the attack using the mitigation policies, and that the client was blocked. Now we know the attack has been stopped and controlled, and we now can access the incident report to fully understand the scope of the attack. Nasuni's ransomware attack incident report starts with a summary of key details of the attack. Nasuni's ransomware attack incident report starts with a summary of key details about the incident, including the edge clients involved, the volume involved, and the number of files that were encrypted. It also provides an event timeline. The timeline illustrates key events related to the incident, including the last completed snapshot that was taken prior to the beginning of the incident. Now that we have all the details of the attack, we can now move back to the NMC and initiate Nasuni's targeted restore process. This opens up a dialog for a restore job that is automatically configured for that incident with the exact files that were affected by the attack and the last clean snapshot. All the admin has to do is input the ransomware pattern to ensure the original files and names are recovered correctly. Configure a few final settings and confirm the restore. When a ransomware attack happens, time becomes money, and every second you save reduces the economic impact on your organization. Nasuni's ransomware protection is designed with this in mind. We help your team respond quickly and ensure end users are back to accessing their files normally as quickly as possible. To learn how Nasuni's ransomware protection services can help your organization thrive in the face of today's ransomware threats, visit nasuni.com.
All right, well, I hope that was helpful to kind of put the whole story together and really show that, there's a lot of tools that go into getting back to business fast. You have to have the ability to detect an attack. You have to have the ability to mitigate the blast radius of it, and the ability to recover fast. And with that, I think I'm good to go. Probably have a few minutes left for any questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that, Ben. Great presentation. Love the demo. That add-on protection service. I mean, that was a dramatic demo. The kind of thing that makes you look like a hero if you're stopping an attack, while you're sleeping, because of course you didn't do anything as the admin, right? Nasuni took care of the whole thing for you. Really good stuff to see. So we're going to take some Q&A, but what I wanted to do also in the meantime is put up a poll while we're doing some Q&A, and I want to find out the answers to this. For those people who are watching this, they may want more information from Nasuni. So we want to put up a poll asking all of you attendees what you would like to see, what kind of information you want from Nasuni. So with that, I'm going to leave that up for a little bit, but let's go over some questions. First of all, from an attendee, are there any implications for cyber insurance with the Nasuni solution, Ben?
That's something we're definitely looking into and talking with a few cyber insurance vendors to become a preferred vendor. I think, it seems like these days it's not about even getting premiums down. It's about being able to even get that insurance. I think it seems to be getting harder and harder. So yeah, we're looking with a couple of them to be on a preferred vendor list, that if you have Nasuni and you have our ransomware solution, you'll have a better chance of getting coverage there. But I think kind of similar to the question, I think it was an interesting thing that we learned while talking to some customers is that incident report, especially in certain states and countries, I think one that stands out is California, that if you are attacked, you have to report it to the government within 72 hours or even there can be pretty hefty fees lying there by not reporting it. And I think, by paying some ransoms, there can be also additional fees that apply, to someone that's almost paying a terrorist. So I just thought that was interesting. That report being able to generate automatically could definitely be helpful, for insurance purposes, for reporting purposes, for visibility across the organization, but also, for those government reporting requirements as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, next question for you. How is file backup different from server backup?
I would say, so restoring servers and databases is generally fairly quick. And, even some of our customers will use products like Rubrik to do things like this. But files, restoring files can be a lot heftier. It can take hours, even days or weeks. If you're restoring, from backup and the ransomware attack got away from you and spread far and wide, sometimes people are just paying the ransom because it's not worth the recovery process. And why is this? Just the sheer volume. Customers are generally surprised to know how many files they even have. And, they may have millions of files of all different sizes, and it can be surprising just the sheer volume of that. And depending on how they're used, it can be very difficult to prioritize that recovery process. And so usually with the ransomware attack, customers have to just, rely on a full backup. And so with Nasuni, it's a little different because there's no movement of the files from your backup to the production server. And, like we talked about a little bit in this presentation, these restore processes can be extremely precise to the exact files affected with that precise timestamp that is relevant. It, identifying that last clean snapshot tells you exactly where to recover to, and you're able to, really precisely recover those files.
Sure. Okay. Looks like we're running out of time now, Ben, but final question for you. If somebody wants to get started with Nasuni or find out more, what do you recommend as the next step?
You could definitely reach out to me with any more questions. We could do personalized demo or get more information, but definitely check out nasuni.com and our page specifically focused on ransomware protection, and you'll learn a lot more there as well. I think I did provide a link to that particular demo to look a little closer, but I can also provide more additional information.
Great. Well, thanks so much for your time and for those insights and for letting us know what Nasuni is up to. It looks like an exciting time. And thanks again, Ben. We really appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much.
For sure. All right. So with that, it is time for our first prize drawing of the day. And the winner of the first $300 Amazon gift card is Jason Jarig, I think I got that right, from California. Congratulations to you, Jason. We will be in touch very soon to get you your prize. All right, moving right along. We are now ready for our next presentation. This one is coming from Palo Alto Networks. Presenting for us today for Palo Alto is Consulting Director Dominique Kilman, and I hope I said that right. Dominique, welcome. Thanks for being here today. You ready to go?
I am ready to go. Thank you so much.
Outstanding. We are so glad to have you here. I'm going to turn things over to you. The mic is yours.
Beautiful. So I'm going to take control. So what we're going to talk about today is I'm going to give you some statistics and information about what we see here at Unit 42 at Palo Alto Networks. A little bit about myself. So I am, like we said, I'm a consulting director. I work with lots of different customers. I've been doing consulting for something around 20 years in cybersecurity. I did lots of incident response consulting, so I definitely understand the pain and agony that can be at times. And now in my career, I'm actually on the proactive side of the house. So the goal here on proactive is we get in front of the attackers. So helping our customers secure what they have, helping them find different things within their environment that they may not be aware of. So that's a little bit about myself. And now we're going to talk a little bit about those fun ransomware threat actors that we all know and love, or hate more than that. So starting off with some ransomware trends. Data I'm going to present here is based on our 2023 ransomware and extortion report that came out, I want to say it's like maybe 2 to 3 weeks ago. So we're going to talk about the trends that we saw, and this is a combination of work from our Unit 42 threat intelligence team as well as our consulting team. So combining all of that information that we get to see what is current, new, and trending within the ransomware threat landscape. So first thing that we noticed a whole lot as we're doing these for the past, so we're talking statistics from 2021 through most of 2022, a little bit into 2023, multi-extortion. So originally it was all about encrypting the data. So let's encrypt the data, make sure that you don't have access to that data. As organizations have gotten better at making sure they have backups, attackers then started to pivot into different ways to monetize their access into networks. So data theft, stealing the data, and threatening to release the data is a big one that we have. Distributed denial of service to shut down websites. So making sure that nobody else can see this. And then the fourth one that is rising within its prevalence is harassment. So as the attackers get the data, they then have information about the company's customers, business partners, things like that. And they will actually reach out directly, sometimes to a company's customers. Oftentimes it's directly to executives of the company saying, here's what we have about you, where we're going to release this information. So what we see here is statistics. So data theft, back in 2021, we saw data theft in about 40% of the cases. That's now gone up to 70%. So really big jump in where we're exfiltrating data. And then harassment, it's still relatively low, but it did have a huge jump from 1% up to 20%. So that's a lot of things to be aware of what the data the attacker might have had access to, and what information they have and how they're going to impact other people. We've also seen a few cases where, based on the data that they stole from one company, they then leverage that into phishing attacks on another company to leverage this. So not quite harassment, but they're absolutely leveraging the data that they're stealing to find other ways to get in and out. The last piece we really don't see much of is that distributed denial of service. A lot of that has to do with the fairly robust DDoS protections that a lot of companies have in place, but we do see this starting to rise up again. So over the past week, actually, we did see Microsoft was actually subject to a pretty significant denial of service attack that was impacting a lot of things. So as attackers want new ways to monetize, they are going to find new and creative ways to get money out of the people that they have attacked. Other trends that we started looking at is which industries are the most affected. And interestingly here, manufacturing is one of the huge targets right now. So we were looking at dark web leak sites is where we get a lot of this information, as well as information from the investigations that we do ourselves. And you might be asking yourself, well, why manufacturing? The reason that manufacturing is starting to be such a big target is that attackers realize that rock in a hard place. If they can shut down manufacturing, then the customer is going to be much more likely to try and do a negotiation or to pay just to get back in business. So it's that critical business operation that attackers are looking at, saying, well, what is the thing that I can most impact, that they're most likely to try and move quickly and give me money as quickly as possible? Healthcare right now is still relatively low in that space, but we can see that that's going to start coming up more because, again, healthcare is another one of those industries where it is absolutely critical to be back online as quickly as possible. So manufacturing, healthcare, you can see everybody else has their impacts as well, but those are the ones we think are going to be highly, highly impacted within the next year or so. You may ask yourself, where are the companies being targeted? US wins this one, and a lot of that has to do with the number of companies in the US. So it makes us a very big target here in the United States. But you will see we've got some color coding here that the Americas region itself, so Brazil and Canada are also fairly high in our list of countries that are being attacked. And then Europe, the Middle East, the EMEA region, it's this lighter blue color here. Not as attacked, but it is starting to creep up. So the numbers in here are going up, and the criminal gangs, they're all over the place as well. So they don't respect any type of boundaries. They're going to go after anybody they can and anywhere that they think has the money. So in here, the reason the US is so highly targeted is because the impression is that there's lots of money in the US to get out of people. You'll see we do have a little area of unknown here. So sometimes that's because it's crossing multiple geographies and it can't be classified into one specific area. So there are more details on all of this in the reports. If you guys would like to download them and read all of the gory details in the reports, we absolutely have that. But we have seen attacks on organizations in 107 different countries at this point in time. So lots of attacks going on, lots of attackers thinking that there is money to be had. Financial impact. So ransomware demands keep going up. However, a very important thing to keep in mind is that just because they demanded $50 million, nobody paid them $50 million. So ransomware negotiation is definitely a skill, and it's definitely something that any company should be prepared to either bring in an outside contractor to do this or have someone that has the ability to do this as well. So it really is about negotiation, and if you do have to pay, getting that number as low as possible. So most of the time, that median decrease is almost 50%. So bringing it down as much as possible is very, very important here. So next, I'm going to give you a little bit of information on some of those attackers that we see. So Lockbit. Lockbit is not exactly a new group, but they are very, very persistent. So they keep posting information that they are claiming 801 breached organizations on their leak site. So that's the most that we've seen from anybody. Obviously, we do not have confirmation from any of those companies that we're going to say absolutely they breached them, but this is what Lockbit says they're able to do. So it keeps going up, and Conti has gone away. They were thought of as the most prevalent ransomware group out there, and they posted 511 victims. So right now, Lockbit is leading the pack, absolutely, of a lot of organizations that they're impacting. Next one that we're going to talk about a little bit is Lapsus. That's how I say their name. I don't really care how they say their name. Fairly new, so mid-2021. They don't actually try and extort money out of people. They want to claim that they've hacked things. So this is kind of, if you go back old school, 10, 15 years ago, where it was more about the notoriety and I was able to hack your website and put my logo out there. Lapsus kind of goes around that same idea, that they really just want to be able to say, hey, we owned NVIDIA and Samsung and all those types of things. So interesting group. I can see them pivoting more towards financial gain, or some other ransomware group taking over the Lapsus mechanisms so they can leverage that for money. They tend to use a lot of social engineering, and a lot of it is smishing attacks on these. So a lot of that SMS type of phishing. So Lapsus is one of those interesting groups where their goals aren't totally clear, but I can see them coming later on and starting to demand money because someone's going to want to get paid out of this whole thing. Last one we're going to chat a little bit about is Volt Typhoon. We actually have a different naming convention. It's Insidious Taurus is what we name this at Palo Alto Networks. So I do have a link in the slides here to the threat brief for that particular attack. Fairly recent, so this was May that there was a joint advisory published about this, that it was a nation state attack. So this is attributed to China and looks a lot like this is corporate espionage as well as nation state level espionage. So this is one of those it's a politically motivated type of an attack. They're using a lot of the same techniques that the ransomware actors are using, and that's why we're throwing it into the ransomware bits of our presentation here. So given all of that and everything that we see in the world, some things that we think are going to become more prevalent. And this is our predictions that we have for the next, I'll say year, but more likely predictions are what they are. I would say about 6 months, and then we'll decide how many of these were accurate and where we need to shift. So one that's super interesting is a large cloud ransomware compromise. So cloud is absolutely more prevalent in the industry as well. And attackers see that, and they're going to do more and more to see how they can leverage cloud and how they can get bigger paydays with impacting the cloud resources. I suspect some of what was going on with Microsoft might have been an attempt to leverage that cloud environment to see what they could do. More means of initial access. We know a lot of initial access is about, we always blame it on phishing campaigns, but we also see that the actual majority of initial access is through vulnerabilities. So as companies become better at identifying and patching and blocking off those paths of vulnerabilities, threat actors will definitely find other ways to get in. Additional extortion methods, we talked about the 4 that we see prevalent right now. They're going to find more ways to monetize that. And the sad part is that once they've exfiltrated the data, there are a lot of opportunities to find other ways of extortion because you have the data. Insider threats. We talk about this a lot within our industry of insider threats, but they are a risk because your insiders do know where that data is. And, this was probably, I'm thinking about 10 years ago, where there were some of these insider threats where, sysadmins were able to lock a company out of their organization, and that could start to rise again. And then we've already seen this supply chain and source code of victims. So infecting the supply chain and using ransomware as a distraction. So everybody's going to be focused on the ransomware and maybe not noticing that something got infected into the source code that then they can leverage later on. So it can be used as a distraction attempt. And I think we're going to see more of that going forward. And then I did skip through number 1, but number 1 is actually very important, that government involvement is going to be key in disrupting the extortion groups, because attackers cross borders. Most of us as security people, we don't have the ability to arrest anybody. So needing government involvement, needing law enforcement involvement to actually find the people doing this and disrupting those groups is going to be important to how we start to get a handle on it. I don't think ransomware is going away anytime in the near future, but the more we can get government cooperation, the more likely we are to be able to start limiting the damage that they have. So now I'm going to pivot more into the malware. So we talked about initial access, that they'll identify novel means. So I want to pivot over into another set of data that we have, that this is from, I'm trying to remember the name of it. This is our 2023 malware report. So the malware report is a combination of data from our networking teams. So we get to see lots of firewall data. So our networking teams, our incident response teams, as well as our threat intel team. So talking about what do we see in malware and how it's evolving in the environment. First up, vulnerabilities. We have said for years and years and years that you've got to patch. And we all know that we have to patch, but the problem that we have is look at this huge increase in the number of vulnerabilities. So as the number of vulnerabilities continues to go up, patching continues to be a problem, and no one can patch, 0 minute at this point. So Log4j and Realtek, these were a lot of where this increase came from. And that's where we actually see most of the initial infections. It is absolutely through vulnerabilities. So the problem becomes in this next slide where we see 0 days or not 0 days, looking at how quickly exploits in the wild are discovered based on when the vulnerability was published. So, we can see very quickly, it's a couple weeks. Sometimes it is actually only a couple days between, so this is July 8th, 2021. In the wild was July 19th. So attackers are very quickly able to leverage anything that they find about a vulnerability and create those exploits. Some of the things that we saw in Log4j especially, so that got published and it was within 20 minutes of those vulnerabilities getting published that we saw scanning to identify systems with those vulnerabilities. Some of those were absolutely legitimate that companies were scanning to find it. A lot of that were attackers scanning to see where they would start targeting their next attack. So vulnerabilities is a very hard problem to solve because the more complex our software is, the more vulnerabilities we're going to have. The best advice that we can give you is know what your attack surface looks like. So absolutely being aware of what tools do you have installed, what things do you have publicly facing. So the last thing that you want to find out is that you do have Log4j because an attacker found it first. So you want to be ahead of the game and knowing what type of environment you have, what are your third parties, what are you relying on to make sure that you can get ahead of things as much as possible instead of having the attacker let you know where you are vulnerable. Phishing, we still see lots of phishing. It is a popular infection vector, and attackers absolutely know the types of files that we have to look at all the time. So you'll see PDF, that's the largest one that we see here, and that's because they know that we open PDFs because that's how we're doing business. So executables is pretty low, and they don't get as much return because most of our email systems are actually blocking executables. But the business applications that all of us have to use, absolutely they are going after that. And as much as we like to think that phishing exercises and things like that are going to fix it, what really helps us here is limiting the damage. So if I will absolutely fall for phishing attacks, someone is going to be able to craft an email that I will absolutely open. And I know that despite knowing that this is my job. Me getting my machine infected is bad, and that is bad for me. If my company has the tooling in place to limit that infection to one system, it's not awful for the company. It's awful for me because I have to reimage and everything that I had stored on my system might be gone. But if that doesn't spread throughout the entire environment and they were not able to leverage the infection of one machine to be able to get to all of our sensitive information, that's where we start being able to recover better. So making sure that we're limiting access, making it much harder for anybody to pivot just because they were able to pop Dominique's machine doesn't mean that they should then have access to the Palo Alto source code, for example. So that's what we think would go there. AI, big area of discussions. Lots of concerns for lots of different people for lots of different reasons. Our concern that we're looking at is looking at this registrations for the domains. related to ChatGPT and then attempts to mimic ChatGPT. So ChatGPT might be perfectly safe, but does everybody know that they're going to the right ChatGPT? And conversely, do you know what type of data people are posting in there? So it's a possibility that they might be posting in the wrong one. So I'm getting close to my 20-minute mark, which means I will speed up a little bit and get us through this to give time for Q&A. Linux malware being on the rise. We've talked about Linux being a target for years and years. And partially, I think, yes, the time has come. And most of the time, I think that's not true. But you'll see a big focus on botnets here because it is easier to leverage Linux to do all of that mining and botnet and getting out to other people. So that's why we see Linux on the rise here. Other things that we think are going to be trending, encrypted malware and traffic will keep increasing. So it's going to be much harder to detect malware within that traffic. Spreading malware through vulnerabilities not going away. Increasingly complex threats also not going away. And crypto miners and coin miners we think is still going to be pretty popular here. So the crypto industry has its ups and downs, but if you can leverage somebody else's corporation to mine your crypto, doesn't bother you so much with the ups and downs because someone else is paying for that, and then you're just getting pure profit. All right, key takeaways. I'm absolutely not going to read all of these for you. We've talked about some of them already, but some things I want you to think about is being able to be prepared. So the more you think about, do I have a playbook for ransomware? Does it include ransomware negotiation? Does it include what happens in multi-extortions? Preparing and testing your plans. So once I've figured out those playbooks, making sure everybody's comfortable with those playbooks. Having visibility in your environment. So XDR technology, EDR technology, attack surface management. Knowing what you look like on the outside and knowing what you got in place on the inside is absolutely key to being able to identify when you are at risk and to be able to do as much as possible to mitigate those risks. Zero trust mindset, absolutely that idea of compromising my machine doesn't mean a compromise of the organization in general. And then we do love, from a security perspective, we absolutely love being able to look at all the traffic. This is absolutely a risk discussion you have with your company to make sure that you're not exposing anything that you shouldn't. But the more visibility you have and the more information you can find quickly and having that full view of your environment, the better off you are going to be. So I got through that. We are good to go. This next slide is absolutely scan QR codes because you should trust us. I'm from Palo Alto Networks. Absolutely trust us. But a couple of resources to go ahead and get you started. Different places to look at. There's a lot of information on Unit 42, PaloAltoNetworks.com. Lots of information about those threat actors that we were talking about. Links to threat briefs, links to the different reports that we talked about. So absolutely all that information is there and available for you. And now I'm going to take a drink of water and open it up for questions.
All right. Thanks so much, Dominique, for that great presentation. You had some scary statistics there, but that's really important to understand what's happening in the ransomware field because it lets you know how you're being attacked and what you can be expecting in the future, doesn't it? Just so important to have that. So let's, we have time for just a couple questions right now. And I'll ask one really controversial one right now. Do you recommend paying the ransom? What is Palo Alto's current stance on this very controversial topic? And it's not as cut and dried as a lot of people think. What's your feeling?
It's absolutely not cut and dried, and it is that controversial topic. And it really depends on your ability to continue working without that data and your fear of the results of that data getting released. So if your company is going to be down for 6 months because you didn't pay a $3,000 ransom, the optics aren't great of paying a ransom, but 6 months of your company being down is absolutely not a tenable situation for you. So in these cases, this is where you absolutely need that ransomware negotiator as well. So being able to get that down as far as possible. And you also need to do the research of, can you trust the threat actor? And that's an oxymoron, and I absolutely understand why that's an oxymoron. But if you pay the ransom and they still release the data anyway, you just threw money away for no good reason. So as much as possible, being able to figure out, are they a reliable ransomware threat actor is a very weird situation. And I will say 90% of the time when we do scripted tabletops with ransomware, the answer is we're never going to pay ransom. We're never going to pay ransom at all. And so no one actually goes through that exercise. And I think that it is very important to have that exercise and get your board involved to say, what is an acceptable loss for you if we don't pay ransom?
Right. That is correct. And every situation is different. There is no one size fits all when it comes to paying the ransom. So really the best defense here, or the best offense is a good defense. Just make sure you're protected so you don't even have to have that conversation. Right. I mean, that is where every organization wants to be, for sure. Okay. Final question. I wish we had time for more, but you will, Palo Alto will be following up with all the questions that the attendees have. But your presentation, Dominique, was just so stuffed with great information that we have run out of time. I guess that's a good problem to have. But if people want to find out more about Palo Alto and take the next step, what should they be doing?
Who isn't a customer of Palo Alto Networks? But I would absolutely start at the Unit 42 site, because it is my favorite site, of course. So Unit 42 at paloaltonetworks.com. And there are a ton of great resources about different things that we can provide. So I tend to work on the consulting side of the house, not so much the product side of the house, but talking to us in consulting and saying, what are my options for these types of things? And I absolutely recommend going and downloading that 2023 ransomware and extortion report. Lots of cool information. They go way more in depth and more details about that information and recommendations and things like that. So
exactly,
that's where I would go.
Absolutely. So also we have got the poll question up now for people who want to get more information about Palo Alto, Unit 42, all of that stuff. They are ready to help you and willing and want to talk. So reach out to them as soon as possible. Dominique, it's been a real pleasure to have you on today. Thank you so much for joining us and for dropping some knowledge our way.
Absolutely. And you guys can all download the slides for this. My LinkedIn contact information is there. If you can't find the right contact person, just hit me up on LinkedIn and I will definitely find a person to get you all the information that you need.
Great. Thanks again for your time, Dominique.
Thanks so much.
All right. So that was our presentation from Palo Alto / Unit 42. And it was a blast. Now it is time for our next one. And coming up now is Rapid7. Jeffrey Gardner, practice advisor for detection and response for Rapid7. He is with us now, and I hear he's ready to go. Jeffrey, welcome to the event, and thanks for being here today. Since you're ready to go, I will turn it over to you now.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me today. It's my pleasure to welcome you to Ransomware, Tools, Solutions, and Strategies. Now, we're all familiar with ransomware as a concept and the damage it can cause, and today we're going to discuss some of the tools, solutions, and strategies that you can use to combat the various flavors of ransomware that exist today. The agenda. To start, I'll give you a brief overview of who I am and what I've done, go over the basics of the different ways the ransomware operators have evolved over the years, and we'll then discuss the tools, solutions, and strategies one could employ in order to combat each particular type of extortion. And lastly, I'll tell you about some of the strategies which should help reduce the risk of attackers succeeding. So a little bit about myself and why the heck you should care about what I'm saying. My name is Jeffrey Gardner. I am a practice advisor here at Rapid7. Started off over 20 years ago, held every position from analyst up through CISO. I had some experience in the military and working alongside the FBI Cybersecurity Task Force. And I'm also a huge Star Wars nerd and Marvel fan, and am a practicing tattoo artist in what little time I have these days. So let's get into the meat of the presentation. And as I go through this, I will do my best to give a definition whenever I mention a term that may not be typically a part of everyone's daily vocabulary. So it all started with extortion. One of the first ransomware attacks ever was documented by the PC cyborg virus, released via floppy, if you're old enough to know what that was, in 1989. You needed to send like a $190 check to a PO box in Panama, and even though this was simple malware that utilized symmetric key cryptography, which is a form of encryption where the same key that's used to encrypt is used to decrypt. Not content to rest on their laurels, ransomware operators evolved and added an additional type of attack, which became known as double extortion. 2020, they evolved yet again, and they added yet another layer of attack, which was dubbed triple extortion. And finally, in 2021, they brought the most current evolution of ransomware into the mix with 4 layers of attack, dubbed quadruple extortion. So what is single extortion? It's the granddaddy of all ransomware attacks, which basically involves deploying the ransomware, which then encrypts and blocks access to files. The operators then demand payment from the affected organization in exchange for decryption. The data the operators are trying to encrypt usually targeted critical data, as well as anything which could hinder business operations. And as systems became increasingly virtualized or up in the cloud, and the backup process became less onerous due to tapes being slowly phased out, ransomware operators decided they needed to up the stakes and came up with the double extortion scheme. So the first ransomware family to utilize this technique was called Maze. So like traditional ransomware, it encrypted files, but it also added an additional capability, which was to exfiltrate data. Now, instead of simply demanding payment to decrypt your data, they also threaten you with releasing the information they stole if you don't pay the ransom. The ransomware operators usually have dedicated sites where they leak the data, but they can also release the information in underground forums, on the dark web, and on blog sites. Ever the industrious bunch, the ransomware operators yet again came up with another way to inflict additional pain on their victims. The triple extortion technique was pioneered by the operators of the SunCrypt and RagnarLocker ransomware families. Starts with the encryption of your data exfiltration, and the threat of releasing it to the public, but also includes the added threat of performing a denial of service attack or a distributed denial of service attack against the public-facing websites and resources of the target company. Now, to give you an idea of the scale of this type of attack, the biggest DDoS attack to date took place in September of 2017, targeting Google, and reached a size of 2.54 terabits per second. 1 terabit is equivalent to 1.25 gigabits per second. So the attack against Google reached 317.5 gigabits of traffic per second. The latest evolution of ransomware tactics involves 4 different types of attack. Often data encryption starts us off, followed by data exfiltration, threat of release, includes the threat of denial of service or a DDoS attack, but also involves spreading the joy of threatening release of information to the target organization's customers, stakeholders, business partners, and the media. So not only will you be threatened with the release of your information, if any partner information is discovered in your data, that organization will be contacted and threatened as well. Now, when it comes to single extortion or traditional ransomware, we start with some of the basics. As the delivery mechanism for ransomware usually comes through email or the web, we need prevention mechanisms in place to reduce the upfront risk. So for email, I would look at solutions that go beyond, link and attachment scanning for one that does essentially what amounts to behavioral or textual analysis. As one strategy to bypass email defenses is to get the person to contact them via phone or text, and then direct them to visit a particular website under their control. Additionally, if you're able, I do an analysis of the type of attachments your end users are receiving. So do they need to be receiving .lnk, .1, .js, etc. files from external email addresses? Most likely not. So if it's not needed, why allow it? Next-gen AV and EDR is table stakes these days, but I'd make it a point to look at one which goes beyond just blocking and tackling and has features which specifically target the tactics ransomware takes and redirects to make your assets look less appealing. For example, deceiving the malware into thinking the device is already infected, files are already encrypted, or that the system just isn't a good candidate for an entry point. Now, good backup strategies. This should be the norm, but most organizations will back up the data and not do periodic testing to ensure that backups actually work, or that they're free of backdoors, persistence mechanisms, things like checking the registry for auto runs, new service creation, calls to abnormal IP addresses, etc. should be done during the backup testing to make sure they're actually clean. MFA, I don't think I need to go too deep into this one, except to say that your MFA solution should also include, secondary verification mechanisms or risk-based profiling to prevent MFA exhaustion attacks. Adaptive MFA is one such term for that solution. Now, solutions and strategies. Employee training on how to detect phishing or social engineering attacks is fairly common, but most are video-based and only done once a year. I'd look for solutions which actually have employees practice the skills they learn and conduct shorter, more focused training sessions throughout the year to make sure the concepts are being reinforced. Attack surface mapping. This should be a standard part of a vulnerability management program, but knowing your environment, the known knowns, known unknowns, unknown knowns, and unknown unknowns is key to understanding how attackers can exploit weaknesses in your environment. Least privilege. This approach limits access to information to those who have a need for it. Often and hopefully, access is limited to a certain period of time rather than being ongoing. This is commonly referred to as restricting the organizational information based on a user's need to know. Network segmentation. Do all employees need access to every server in your network? Do front-end servers and database servers live on the same subnet? Similar to the concept of least privilege, you want to ensure that if a server is compromised, the resources it's available to access is only the absolute minimum it needs to function properly, or for individuals, the absolute minimum that they need to do their job. Update and patch, common sense, but it's one everyone struggles with. A good first step in the patch management program is to go to your business continuity plan or disaster recovery plan and identify those assets which are critical to business functionality and keep those at the highest level of readiness. Once you can do that, expand the scope to include the secondary and tertiary systems which have access to those critical systems, and so on and so forth. Your entire asset inventory probably won't ever be up to 100% all the time, but taking baby steps towards an acceptable risk level by starting with critical assets is key. Strong passwords. I put strong in quotes because strong, in my opinion, equals long. Complexity does help, but we're talking simple math here. The longer the password, the more combinations an attacker will have to try when cracking. And as there are a number of password management solutions available these days, that should help with the user pushback of having to remember 15+ character passwords. Double extortion. Same base tools and strategies as single extortion applies, but now we add network detection and response. Typically, this means an IDS or an IPS. Basically, you want to have the ability to detect anomalous behavior from your assets should the first line protection, aka next-gen AV or EDR, fail and attackers are able to establish an initial entry point. Connections to a number of assets in a short period of time, network scanning, etc. should be common detections that come with any solution of this type. As to a strategy, understanding your network is key, hence network baselining. Understanding what ports and protocols are in use, what connections are typically established and when, data ingress and egress, quantity and frequency. All are common things to look out for. Ideally, your NDR solution will feature anomalous data transfer capabilities, which basically would utilize machine learning to do that baselining for you and will alert on sudden changes in outbound network traffic. Triple extortion. Again, same, but different, but still same. Same tools and techniques as a single and double, but additions to the toolkit. Most of you have firewalls, and most firewalls nowadays have the ability to block based on region. So does your external infrastructure or assets need to be accessible from Iran or North Korea? If not, flip the switch and block it. Now, most competent operators will utilize compromised assets or bots to get around such blocking, but it's like locking your door. Sure, someone can pick the lock or break down your door, but we still keep all our locks tight and keep things shut. Now, a cloud-based WAF, hopefully one with DDoS or bot rules, will help them block and tackle, but also, as it's cloud-based, should be able to scale automatically to handle the massive amount of traffic that modern resource exhaustion attacks can throw at an organization. And lastly, for tools, a threat intelligence feed. Again, this is sort of basic blocking and tackling, but feeding in known bad IPs and other IOCs into your WAF solution or firewall will help reduce the noise and force attackers to use novel methods and infrastructure to attack your organization, which, quite frankly, most will not want to do. Turning to strategy. A DDoS attack threat model is a structured approach to identifying and analyzing potential risks to your online service or website from a DDoS attack. It includes items such as assets you want to protect, defined potential attackers, defined attack vectors, identification of the attack surface, and an evaluation of the risk levels for all the aforementioned items. DDoS priority. This simply means classifying your assets based on the level of protection they need. For example, business and data-centric web assets should be in a critical bucket with 24/7 DDoS protection. Your other assets may not need as critical of an SLA, therefore you can reduce expenses. Reducing exposure. protecting your critical assets, applications, and other resources such as ports, protocols, and other entry points from direct exposure to attackers. You do this by mapping your attack surface first, but then removing any unrelated or potentially irrelevant services, features, legacy systems, processes that attackers often leverage as points of entry. And this is related to fortifying your infrastructure. Usually this involves onboarding a CDN service or content delivery network, but I would add in hardening assets according to a framework, be it CIS, NIST, or others. One key there to realize is that you will most likely not be 100% in compliance with the framework, most likely a lot less depending on the particular asset. So be flexible and understand that some compliance is better than none. And it's a game of 1%, or a Kaizen mindset, small continuous improvements over time. Lastly, a DDoS resiliency plan. This plan should be focused on the technical competencies and really should be comprehensive, which outlines, how to ensure business continuity under the pressure of a successful DDoS attack. A disaster recovery site, be it physical or virtual, should be a part of your resiliency plan. This site should have a current backup of your data, and the recovery plan should also compromise details like how you're going to approach the recovery, where these backups are maintained, where the site is, who's accountable for what, and a timeline of how things should operate. Quadruple extortion. Same as before, encompasses everything from single, double, and triple extortion, but includes digital risk protection, external threat intelligence, and at least DLP light or data fingerprinting. Digital risk protection basically takes stock of your digital identity and monitors that for attackers who may have exfiltrated data or have posted it on the deep, dark, seedy corners of the internet. This, when combined with external threat intelligence, ideally in the same solution, would monitor for IOAs or indicators of attack, which is a more preventative approach. So if you knew a certain group was planning to attack and you knew how they were going to attack, you could take steps to put in place temporal mitigation strategies to ensure the attack was not successful. Again, the key is temporal, aka temporary. These aren't things that you're going to keep permanently. DLP light, or what I call data fingerprinting, basically is an automated way to take stock of where your data lives. The process involves giving a solution access to your file servers, databases, endpoints, and having it learn what's there. And then you identify what's critical. It'll then go out and scour your assets to find that data in a continuous manner. And by doing so, you can define rules to prohibit the transmission of that data to unauthorized assets or individuals. As to strategy, it's a little line from the Matrix, but know yourself and your business partners. This is a long-term, continuous process. We've talked a lot about knowing yourself, but understanding third-party access, temporary access, where your partner information lives, is critical to protecting it. If you don't know where it is and how it's accessed, how it's moved around, what protections it has, then you'll be hard-pressed to stop attackers from abusing that to their benefit and your detriment. So how can we detect some of the things we were just talking about? And in the essence of time, I won't be reading everything on these screens, but we'll be hitting the highlights. And pardon me, my keyboard was going crazy. For initial access, consider using things like UBA and geolocation to detect first-time login attempts from unusual IPs or locations, and utilize multi-factor authentication everywhere. Everywhere. You might think you can't afford it, but if you have access to Office 365, you can utilize MFA. For discovery and baselining, examining usage of NL test, net, QUser, NTDS-util, and other lol bins, or living off the land binaries, basically built-in executables in your environment, can help you create detections which detect misuse. Lastly, in addition to baselining the aforementioned binaries, you should definitely monitor for the indicators shown at the bottom of the LSAS memory column. I'd suggest monitoring for unusual file execution in the program data, perf logs, users, music, and users' public locations. I'd also suggest monitoring, actually blocking, .xyz, .tech, and .cloud domain usage, especially for usage by non-browser related processes. Lastly, utilize threat intelligence. If you have the budget for it, there are a number of commercially available tools like our own Threat Command product, as well as some open source alternatives like OpenCTI or MISP. So it appears we have reached the end of our time together today. Now, if you'd like to learn more about how Rapid7 can assist you with ransomware or any number of other threats you face, the easiest way would be to send an email to sales@rapid7.com, and one of our fine account executives will reach out to you. Additionally, you can check out our blog to read about all the hot security topics, as well as following us on Twitter or checking out our extensive library of YouTube videos, which, shameless plug, includes series like The Lost Bots, which is hosted by myself and my incredibly talented and hilarious colleague, Stephen Davis. Thank you all for joining today. I hope you found this information useful and that you have a great rest of your day or night, depending where you're located. Take care.
All right. Well, I have to say this. Jeffrey might be the first speaker we've ever had who calls himself a practicing tattoo artist. What do you think about that, huh? Pretty cool, actually. Jeffrey, thank you so much for that presentation and for the deep dive into those details. It's always great to see specifics and to see things sort of uncovered in those layers. Great presentation. So we've thrown up another poll. You've seen this before. This one is for Rapid7. Let them know what you would like to see from them. Ask them anything. Just pretend like they're a Reddit site, and they will be happy to respond and give you more information. I will leave this poll up for another few seconds. And I also would like to remind all of you about the handouts from Rapid7 and from the other vendors that we have featured today. And for the next vendor we have got coming up, make sure to look at all of those handouts and download all of them. All right, so enough with that poll. Let's get to our next session. Oh, no, we got one more thing to do first. Yay. Sorry about that. So it is now time for our next prize drawing. We don't want to forget that. That would be a terrible thing to do. So we have another $300 Amazon gift card to give away. And the winner of this one is Doroteo Ruiz from Texas. Congratulations, Doroteo. We'll be in touch about helping you get your prize. So there we go. Our next Amazon gift card is out there. Now, thank you for staying with us and for your attention throughout this. We are now up to our final presentation of the day. We're going to hear from Graphis, and presenting for Graphis is Channel Development Manager Miles Walker. And joining him for the Q&A is a special guest star, the incomparable Jess Steinbach, who you met at the very beginning of this session. Miles, we hear is ready to go, so I will turn things over to him. Take it away.
All righty. Super excited to be here. Today I'm talking about Graphis, which is part of the Kaseya family. and we're talking about email security and phishing defense. The Graphis tool itself, if we want to get very basic, we're simple, powerful, and automated, but I'm going to dive into that in a little bit. Super excited to be here chatting with everyone today. Graphis, one of the most awarded anti-phishing solutions in the market. This is our slide where I kind of get to brag a little bit, tell a little bit about who we are, where we came from, some awards we've won, and what we do, really. So our mission is to simplify and automate phishing defense, and we're a US-based company founded in 2015, and we integrate with Microsoft 365 and Google Workspace. So you can see right underneath there's some of the awards we've won over the past couple of years. We are super proud of these awards because they're often voted by the IT community, by the MSP community, and it's them saying, you know, what you guys are doing is working for us as a business, which we love. So I mentioned simple, powerful, and automated. So the setup we can do in minutes. And this is a big thing. When you're taking on a new solution, when you know that it won't take a lot of time to get set up, that's big. No changing of MX records, no rerouting email traffic or installing agents on devices, that's big. Powerful, you know, using our AI. I know AI is one of the things that everyone's talking about. We have our self-learning AI, and it blocks 99% of sophisticated email attacks, often phishing emails, before they ever actually reach an employee's inbox. And of course, we're automated. That's something that everyone's talking about as well. AI and automation are two of the big words for 2023. So no manual rules needed. Our threat analysis wizard automatically removes reported emails from all impacted inboxes and returns them into inboxes if an email is found to be non-malicious. That's a big one. All right, let's dive in. So here's some of the partners that know and trust us and use our solution. You probably recognize a few of these. I know I definitely use Dollar Shave Club every so often, AWS, maybe Nuke's Deli, or sorry, Eatery. But this is an example of some companies that have been using our solution. They love it. And I always like to say at our company at Kaseya, we actually were using the solution for about 1.5 years before they came into the Kaseya family. So let's dive in because we're talking about our solution. And a lot of people ask me, what's the relationship between ransomware and phishing? And it's kind of a complicated answer, but I like to make it simple. And this is how I make it simple. 80% of all ransomware attacks involve a phishing email. And us having an anti-phishing solution, this is something that will help your business because at the end of the day, we're trying to stop those phishing emails getting into your business. And ultimately, we're trying to stop ransomware attacks. All right, let's dive into some figures here. I want to show you the threat landscape and what's going on with the phishing world. And this one's a pretty crazy one. If we look at that first number, 600%, that's the increase in phishing attacks since the start of COVID. I actually travel all around North America talking about cybersecurity, phishing attacks, cyber awareness. And one thing that comes up often is, you know, how much these threats have increased since the start of the pandemic. And what's crazy is that at the start of the pandemic, we're going back to March 15th, 2020, pretty dark day in a lot of our lives. What happened was phishing attacks actually went down to an all-time low, which is quite unbelievable. So the reason why is these cyber criminals either had COVID or were trying to figure out their hybrid working environment, and they were working from home. And they didn't have time to make these phishing attacks more prevalent. And then within about 2 weeks, they figured out their hybrid working environment, and then phishing attacks kind of took off, and they went up 600%. Another crazy number, an estimated 90% of data breaches begin with a phishing email. So phishing is the, biggest thing that's really affecting the cybersecurity world. And I always say, if you don't have a phishing security solution in place or a phishing solution in place or an anti-phishing solution in place, you're going to probably have one in the next 24 months. So start doing your research. I'm not saying you have to go with Graphis, even though I love our product, of course, but you definitely have to start doing your research. Simple tools that were probably in place before aren't cutting it, and these cyber criminals are getting more and more sophisticated, and they're figuring out ways to attack and breach businesses. Once again, the C-suite is a very likely group that's targeted, and these are often in spear phishing attacks. Spear phishing is when a cyber criminal has a little bit of information, and it's a much more targeted attack. We're seeing this happen often with the C-suite, as mentioned here, but spear phishing attacks are something that have been around for a while, but they're coming more and more prominent. And lastly, the average cost of a successful BEC or business email compromise is $4.7 million. I know for me, I don't have that kind of money kicking around, so this is something that every business has to be thinking about moving forward. How do they mitigate their risk and stop attack vectors from hitting them, because that's a big number. All right, big players getting attacked. We probably all heard of a lot of these ones, whether it's the Costa Rica state of emergency declared after a ransomware attack, ransomware demand probe after a big hack in Australia. Australia became the first country on earth to have a rule now in place that if you have been hit by a cyber attack, you have to report it or you will be fined. I know Canada, the US, and parts of Europe are looking at a similar law that will be put in place, but Australia was the first country to do this. If we're looking at different places around America, North Dakota was the first state to make cybersecurity mandatory in schools. I love to hear that. Because I'm talking about cybersecurity, cyber awareness, this is something that I hope other states will see North Dakota do and follow suit. Lastly, there's an estimated 2.3 billion ransomware attacks in 2022, an 80% increase since 2021. So one thing we've learned over this past year, attacks are happening. They're happening more frequently. They're happening now to small and medium-sized businesses. They're not just going after those huge enterprise companies now. So the days of, the Coca-Colas and the Microsofts and the Intels being attacked, yeah, that's still happening. But they're realizing that the low-hanging fruit of small and medium-sized businesses. Why are they the low-hanging fruit? They often don't spend the money that the bigger companies do for security awareness training, for anti-phishing solutions, for ransomware protection. And they're realizing that, you know what, the payday might not be as big, but it's easier to attack them. All right, moving along. So the little guys, they're often getting attacked. I don't know if you recognize any of these companies here, or businesses, or public institutions. I know one of them here is a local private school just down the road from me. And what's so crazy is that when this attack happened, it made news in our town, and the attack was on their servers. And the cyber breach, or the cyber attack that happened, what's so crazy about it is the ransom that they demanded was only $16,000. I'm hearing these stories more and more. I have a friend in Sydney, Australia, who reached out to me and said, Miles, we just had an attack. And I said, okay, what's going on? And it was a local CrossFit gym. And the ransom was $8,000. So obviously we hear these great splashy stories in the news of $5 million ransom, $10 million ransom, $20 million ransom. But now these cyber criminals know, go after the small fish and you'll actually get paid. Whether it's Jason's Deli, Wentworth is a golf club just outside of London in England, and this cyber attack breached all of their members. And it's kind of the who's who of the England aristocracy, we could say. A lot of millionaires, a lot of billionaires call Wentworth home. And when the breach happened, they didn't ask for a ransom. They just were out for getting information. So they're getting data. So all these attacks, they have a different targeted approach. Whether it was the Whistler Blackcomb attack that happened close to my hometown, and that just sowed chaos. 4 days, people could not book online, and Whistler Blackcomb lost millions. So these are just examples of some of the little companies that are getting attacked, and they're not just going after the bigs. All right, 71% of companies worldwide were affected by ransomware in 2022. Wow. I think this was about 45 or 50% the year before. So 7 out of 10 businesses right now are affected by ransomware. Doesn't mean they paid a ransomware, doesn't mean they were attacked, but some way they were affected. Something crazy to think about. So AI is the future of email security. AI is something that we use in our daily life, even if we don't know it. For example, when I log into Netflix each day to watch a movie or a TV show, Netflix recommends shows or movies that I might like based on my past viewing. That is the AI going to work. Apple Music, which I use on a daily basis. Each week I get a curated playlist based on what I've listened to in the past or most recently. And they actually predict what they think I'm going to like. My banking apps will tell me if there's a new interest rate for my loan, or maybe if my mortgage is coming up. These are examples of AI that we don't think about. I have a newborn baby, and Amazon reaches out to me every week and says, hey, do you need new diapers? Hey, do you need new baby wipes? Because it knows that I bought them from them in the past, and that's the AI going to work. And AI really is the future of email security. When I say the future of email security, it's something that's involved in our lives. It's not going away anytime soon. And how that helps, cost savings. AI security gives you more protection without adding to your payroll. That's a big one. Improve cybersecurity posture. This is another great slide. If you've got that camera, take a photo because you might want to look at it later. 42% of companies in an IBM survey cited AI and security automation as a major success factor at improving their cybersecurity posture. we're going to be using AI, we're going to be using automation going forward. So this is something we have to get on board with. Greater cyber resilience. Almost 25% of companies in the IBM Ponemon Cyber Resilient Organization survey cited adopting solutions that use AI or machine learning. And lastly, what we're trying to do, we're trying to mitigate those attacks. And how do we mitigate those? By fewer phishing emails reaching employees. Whether it's the 300 billion emails that are getting sent out each day in the world, those have a payload in them with suspicious emails, with dangerous emails. And if you can stop those emails getting through to the end user, that's your best shot at not having an attack. All right, so let's dive a little into the product itself. Here's Graphis. And here's our 3 levels of Graphis, or our 3 layers, we like to say. So we've got Phish 911, Employee Shield, and our automatic quarantine. So we look at those malicious emails, we look at the suspicious emails, or the suspicious and unwanted. So we can report those phishing emails, we have those warning banners, and then we also can quarantine emails. So the Trust Graph, this is the core of our protection. I've talked quite a bit about AI already, and this is more AI talk. So this is our patented AI technology. This is our secret sauce, so to speak, of our business. So we analyze historical and real-time communication patterns. So what does that actually mean? When we actually log in and when Graphis is deployed on your email, it looks at who you talk to. So who the senders are, who the emails you've historically communicated with, the attachments, devices, IP addresses, URLs, time of day, and it creates a process and it creates a trust graph. And that trust graph is kind of like a trust score, or a credit score. And when I say credit score, it looks at who you talk to, and then it creates a plan. Will we allow those people to come through? And if you've obviously talked to them, that means they're a safe sender. If you haven't, that'll throw up a red flag. So trust graph, our rating for trustworthiness, it is the core for identifying and blocking social engineering attacks and protecting you from zero-day attacks. So automatic quarantine. This is the trust graph going to work here. Graphis automatically detects and quarantines malicious emails. So they're not actually going to get through to the end user. So if needed, it will also notify you or help you analyze any quarantine emails with our investigation wizard, or push them back into the user's inbox. So that's great that it's actually working. It's learning. It's figuring out who you talk to, how you talk to them, and then allowing those emails in. Employee Shield warning banner. This is the most visual layer of defense we have at Graphis. So it alerts recipients of a potentially suspicious message, and it shows you what the danger might be. And the Employee Shield banner is interactive. So you can see there, you can report phishing or you can report a false positive. So if you know that email is legitimate, you report a false positive, and then the AI learns that this is a trusted sender. And the great thing is, if you report phishing email and maybe your organization has all had this similar email, it'll actually pull it from all the inboxes. So say, for example, Mike wakes up in New York, he gets this phishing email, he reports it as a phishing email. By the time, Alana has woken up in LA, that has already been pulled from the inbox and from the system. And what's so great about this, you can mark phishing or mark safe, and it actually tells you what type of phishing attack the email might be. So you alert your user, you empower your user, and then you can analyze that threat. Phish 911, reporting suspicious emails, the last layer of defense, where you can automatically quarantine, and then the IT team can actually analyze that threat. They can dive into a sandbox mode, take a look at that email, and you know what? They might realize that this is actually a legitimate email, and they can re-release it back into the wild, so to speak. But this is so key, because Phish 911 transform your users into an active shield of defense by empowering them to proactively quarantine an email. So when we get a new solution as a business, we want to make sure that we can get it up and running quickly. And that is super key for us. We mentioned Google Workspace and Microsoft 365. So we can get up and running in a couple minutes. If you're under a couple hundred inboxes, you can take up to about an hour, but it could be done as quickly as a couple minutes. The automated initialization of the Trust Graph, that's our self-learning algorithm. That's the AI, the secret sauce I talked about. It goes to work and it starts figuring out who the employees are talking to. Doesn't obviously look at all the information there. It just looks at how they're communicating. And then lastly, the self-learning algorithm is constantly analyzing new interactions. So it evolves with each email. That's really key. All right, just want to see how I'm doing for time here. Okay. So most importantly, what we're doing at Graphis, we are an anti-phishing solution. We're one of the most awarded solutions in the marketplace. But what we're really doing is giving your business peace of mind. So we work 60% more effective than a traditional secure email gateway or an SEG, and we look after your business. And we're stopping 99% of all phishing attacks. If there was a solution in place that could stop all phishing attacks, every human on earth would be buying that solution. Sadly, that's not available, and it probably will never become available because these cyber criminals are constantly evolving. They're constantly figuring out new and innovative ways to attack businesses through business email compromise, from domain spoofing. So this is a great solution you can use right now to help protect your business. So if we're going to look at the NIST framework, the NIST framework is something that a lot of companies are using. It's the most popular framework in North America. It's also a very popular framework being used in Europe. And it is the National Institute of Standards and Technology. So they look at the ways as a business you can protect yourself and create better cyber hygiene and create better cyber awareness at your company. And everyone always asks, well, Miles, Graphis is just one part of the solution. That's part of the protect part of the NIST framework. And this is some of our other solutions that we have under the Kaseya family or the Kaseya umbrella and part of IT Complete, which are how they actually align in that framework. So whether it's Identify, we have Dark Web ID, where we can do dark web scans, whether it's Network Detective Pro or IT Glue. Protection, Bullfish, Graphis, and Bullscan. Those are solutions you can use to protect your business. Detecting those cyber criminals through Rocket Cyber, Cyberhawk, and Datto, responding through Datto and Rocket Cyber, and then recovering through our spanning and Unitrends. So these are just examples how we align to make your business more powerful and to give you better cyber hygiene. So back to it. Human-related causes are responsible for 95% of all cybersecurity breaches. So you can have the best solutions in place. You can have, the top of the line products. But at the end of the day, if your team is not working together and not working to protect the business and to protect them against cyber attacks, doesn't matter what solutions you have. So that's something big. I talk to business leaders from all over the world. Everyone says, Miles, can you just give us a few solutions that we can use that we don't have to think about it? That's not how cybersecurity works. You're going to give them as many solutions as you can, but you need to train your team on it. And at the end of the day, human-related causes are responsible for this many breaches. When we talk about other solutions that are in our stack, I mentioned a few earlier. Bullfish ID is an important one because it's great to have the anti-phishing solution in place, but with security awareness training, this is what actually helps them from clicking on those phishing emails. We can stop 99% of all phishing emails from coming through to your inbox, but that 1% is the ones that we really worry about the most. So whether you're using some type of security awareness training, it would be great to have something that works well and works in unison with our products. Organizations that conduct regular security awareness training have a 70% lower likelihood of experiencing a successful ransomware attack. That's big. Mitigating human error by transforming employees from security risks into security assets. Another one. Lots of people think that humans are our biggest security risk, and that is true, as we just saw by that last slide. But let's turn that risk into one of our biggest assets. Whether it's using the plug-and-play customizable phishing kits, we have something for you with Bullfish ID. So, one of my favorite movies here, Office Space, doing phishing simulations is no longer optional. 5 years ago, I would say less than 30% of companies were doing phishing simulations. Now it's probably closer to 50%. So this is something that has to be on everybody's radar. All right, got an exclusive offer. We're doing 20% off our AI-powered email security, that's Graphis, and or security awareness training. So if you're keen, we'd love to hear more from you. Now maybe over for some questions. Is that what we're going to do?
Yeah, I think it's time for some questions, Miles. Thank you so much for that awesome presentation. I appreciate you time checking yourself so that we could have some time for questions because there are lots coming in. I think you definitely resonated with the audience. I mean, how could it not? This stuff is so interesting. And I want to make sure that we leave some time. So I'm going to jump right in here. You ready, Miles?
Great, let's do it.
All right, let's start with this one here. How is Graphis different from a secure email gateway or SEG?
Okay, great. Well, yeah, I mentioned, briefly that we protect I think it's up to 60% more than a secure email gateway. And a secure email gateway, they've been around for 20 to 25 years. I'm not going to say they're dinosaurs because they are evolving, but they just haven't evolved as much as the AI-based solution. So when you think of a secure email gateway, you maybe had one in place since 2003 or 2008, and they've done a great job protecting you against cyber criminals. Cyber criminals are evolving. They're getting smarter. They're figuring out ways around those secure email gateways, and that is where they maybe haven't evolved quite as much as an AI-based phishing solution. So I'm not saying you have to get rid of your secure email gateway. They are protecting you. But with today's threats becoming more and more prominent and more prevalent, you have to step up your cybersecurity game. And that's why these AI-based phishing solutions are becoming more popular.
Okay. Well, speaking of that becoming more popular, we had a couple of questions come in, Miles, about kind of what makes Graphis stand out or unique. And this one here, what's the difference between your banner and banners I've seen on similar products?
Well, our banner, it changes depending on the type of attack. So say it's a domain spoofing, it'll actually say domain spoofing. Or if it says a business email compromise attack, or that's what the solution thinks it is, it'll actually say that in the banner. Maybe it's a spear phishing email that's been targeted to the C-suite. It'll actually mention what kind of attack that is, and they are constantly evolving. So if you report that false positive, the AI system actually learns. But at the end of the day, what's so important is that banner is changing. Other companies have banners as well. Maybe they followed suit with us, but they're not as evolved as we are, where it actually gives you an idea of what the potential phishing attack could be.
Oh, that's so important, especially when it comes to learning, which is such a great unintentional segue into our next question about training. But yeah, I think just saying to somebody alert, 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 without giving them information on what it was or what they now can learn from. Okay, that's what spear phishing looks like. Now I'm going to log that away, and I've got that. It's the human side of learning as well as the AI. And that was one of the questions that we got. So I'm going to jump to this one here. If I have a phishing solution, do I need security awareness training? What do you think, Miles?
So it's kind of like the whole license for a car thing. If let's say Graphis is the car, you need to take driving lessons. You need to learn how to drive that car. Like I got a 1988 Honda Civic when I turned 16, and you know what? I had about a month and a half under my belt, but I had taken driving lessons for several months. And getting a new solution is great, but actually knowing how to use that's why security awareness training is so key. We mentioned earlier, increase your cybersecurity posture by up to 70% if you do cybersecurity awareness training. 5 years ago, nobody was doing cybersecurity awareness training. Now it's about 50% of medium and large scale businesses. Small scale businesses are still not doing cybersecurity awareness training. Why? They think they're too small. They think the cyber criminals don't care about them. You know what the cyber criminals care about now? Money. They don't care how small you are. If you are the low-hanging fruit, if you do not have tools in place, they know that they can attack you, and they might not make out with $1 million, but they can get away with 10 or 12 grand. And that is something that cyber criminals are doing. So cybersecurity awareness training is just one more tool a business needs to make sure their cybersecurity posture is better than it was before, because these attacks are evolving, they're getting better, and they're coming after small and medium-sized businesses.
Yeah, I really like that driver's license analogy. I think that's a good one and really brings that point home pretty clearly. Miles, I wish we could keep going here because I'm having so much fun chatting with you, but I think we are going to have to wrap it up, unfortunately. But before you leave us, though, can you tell us if somebody out there is ready and excited, wants to jump in with Graphis, what do they do? What is step number one?
Yeah, reach out to us if you want to get pricing, if you want to hear more, if you want to get a demo, if you want to take advantage of our exclusive offer. Obviously, like I said, 20% off Graphis and or our security awareness training. Reach out and we can get you set up with a demo. And I always say, if you're looking at phishing solutions, now is the time to do it, because everyone's going to have a phishing solution in place in the next kind of 24 months. So do your research, see a few products, have a demo, see if the product's right for you, and we can kind of go from there. But that's it for me. Pricing and reach out if you want to hear more.
Which is perfect, Miles, because we've made it super easy. And in just a moment here, Keith is going to put up a poll for us that has the option to sign up for a demo right there. So your next step is to click on the poll, which will be up in just a moment here, and click on that demo option and sign up, and then you'll get this awesome exclusive pricing, which is a pretty cool offer. So Miles, thank you to you and your team for putting together this presentation, for that really cool offer to our audience here, and just for a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed chatting with you.
Yeah, thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
All right, and there is the poll. It appears like magic. What a great presentation. I really enjoyed Miles and what he shared with us, and Jess joining him for a super fun Q&A session. Things always seem to be better when Jess is involved. So the poll is up. You can see it. Tell us what additional information or resources you'd like to see from Graphis. Operators are standing by, as they say. So I see you're responding well, and thanks so much for doing that. I'll leave it up here for another few moments. And I wanted to remind everyone again that Graphis has a handout in the handout section, as do all the other vendors who were on today. So please head over there where we've got just a little bit of time left and download all that information that you can get for free. Miles, I want to thank you for sending us out today on a high note. And that leads us into our final Amazon gift card prize drawing of today's event. And the winner of that last $300 Amazon gift card, remember, you do, as Jess said at the beginning, you do have to be present for the entire event to be eligible. And the winner of this final $300 Amazon gift card is Manny Punzo from Arizona. Congratulations to you, Manny. We will be in touch very, very soon about getting you your prize. All right. I sure learned a lot today. A lot of stuff I didn't know. And that's one of the best things about these events. Now, if that's you too, you may have been watching the sessions and thinking that this type of an event would be the ideal place to tell folks about your platform or solution. If that's the case, we'd love to hear from you to help you determine which of our hundreds of events each year would be a good fit for your organization. So you can see the email up there. Contact us at connect@actualtechmedia.com and let us help you with the same kind of event. And let's see. We have one more little bit here to take care of. We have a sneak peek of an event that may greatly interest you tomorrow. It's about managing cloud assets, and it's taking place at noon Eastern time, which is 9 a.m. Pacific time. Great topic, very hot right now, and it'd be well worth your time to set aside a bit of your day tomorrow and learn more about this crucial topic, and it really is. Again, that is tomorrow, June 22nd, noon Eastern time, 9 a.m. Pacific time. And with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank all of our presenters today for putting together such great presentations and demos, Q&A, and all of that stuff. I want to thank our participants for making this event possible, and those vendors were Nasuni, Palo Alto, Rapid7, and Graphis. Thanks you all so much for your participation today in making this such a fantastic event. Finally, last but certainly not least, I want to thank all of you attendees who are on right now for being here and being here for this EcoCast from Actual Tech Media and ransomware.org. Don't forget to check out the website, as Jess talked about. A lot of fantastic knowledge that you really can't get anywhere else. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for spending part of your day with us. That concludes today's event, and have a great rest of your day.